you were to use a color to describe your SCA life, what would it be? Second part, what color would you choose for your mundane life?
Oh my God. That's a hard question.
Be a skeld.
I was gonna say we don't have a skeld, so she had to come up with a skeld-like question.
Yeah, that's a weird question.
Yeah. Want to know mine? Because I can tell you right now.
Okay, you tell me yours, and then that maybe will help me, because maybe I'm turning this into like
maybe it's a way narrower.
And I'm like, which is going to be complimentary? And
my SCA color is blue. Really love this version of it, but really any shade of blue that doesn't make me look like I have just spent 6 days without food and water. Super on board with that. My mundane color is pink, and not like a little bit, like we're talking like pink.
Okay.
That's it.
I think probably my SCA color is green.
I can see that.
Oh, you know what? No, I'm going to rephrase that. It's red, because I always have red. Like
Nice.
I always have something red that I can. Right now, I don't. Well,
Right.
Actually, no, I have red armpits.
There you go. That counts.
I always have red. Like there's always red in my kit somewhere.
Yep.
And that started with the roofs, because red is such a significant and important color.
Yes.
But it sort of has hung on, because like Little Orphan Annie, I look good in red. And so it's funny, it's a
Not
ginger
wrong.
thing. And I mean, you know, it's, anyways. So red be my SCA color. I think I kind of want to say purple, except I don't want to say purple, and there's a reason why. So I know you're super offended.
Like super offended right now.
When I was in my 20s and lived on the coast, I had a roommate who was from Australia. She's the greatest thing in the universe. And I feel like this quote came from Anne of Green Gables, but maybe we just came up with it on our own. I really feel like it's probably from Anne of Green Gables, because we were both huge Anne nuts. Right. And when we had a bad day at work, or just a bad day in general, bad weekend, whatever, the boy that we liked didn't like us back, or the boy that we liked us back, but then we broke up, or whatever, there was a lot of like boy stuff that made us sad. That's fair. That's what your 20s are like.
Yep.
And if you had a bad day, you had a purple day. I'm just feeling really purple today. Today is a purple day.
I like it.
Yeah, it's surprising. But now, and so purple always was like a super negative color for me. Even right up till, funnily enough, when I got married, purple was one of my wedding colors, and I was like, oh, I like this color. It goes with my dress. When you're a big girl, you have limited wedding dress options, and my dress had lavender embroidery on it, and so my bridesmaids had eggplant purple dresses. So even though I was like, however, now there's a lot of purple in our lives. Not sad day purple,
right?
But there's a lot of purple in our lives. My daughter being involved with Job's Daughters, and purple is one of the colors of the order. And so there's a lot of purple in our lives, because really all that's been happening in the last year has been Joey's. And so like I have huge amounts of purple in my wardrobe even. And purple has grown on me like a purple mold.
I don't know if I like that reference either, but I'll take it.
Like I quite like purple now. I still, sometimes I have days when I'm like, oh, today's kind of a purple day, but it's more of like a yucky purple that had like some green mixed into it.
Okay, that's fair. I can get on board with that.
Purple day. Whereas like when I was like, today is a purple day, I used to have a very specific purple in my mind that was purple.
Yep.
Now when I'm like, oh, it's a purple day, it's more of just like, it's kind of a muddy, sad day.
I think you answered that quite well. Again,
Mhm.
not quite on board with the negative feelings about purple, but you know, I'll look it past it.
I can't be perfect, okay?
Fair, I guess.
I mean, you're just gonna have to accept that this is my fatal flaw, that purple was not my favorite color when I was, you know, in my 20s.
I guess I can accept your one flaw. That's fine.
There you go.
If someone brand new to the SCA, like, just getting started, what would you have for them for recommendations?
Get to know people, make
Mhm.
friends. Don't be scared of the people with the shiny hats on, because as a general rule, they started out even more embarrassingly than you did. Yeah, just get to know people, and like, and don't wed yourself to one culture right out of the gate. Because you may find that, you know, Genera Viking is not for you.
Right.
You know,
Fair.
we live in a really, both kingdoms, both our kingdoms are very Viking centric.
What? I've never noticed.
Shocking. Shocking information.
Shocking. And there's lots of variety out there. And so like, you might be like, well, that, I mean, everybody's wearing that. Maybe that's what I should wear, but maybe not. Maybe you want to rock the Landsknecht because it's super hot.
Right?
Or maybe you want to wear a fitted cotardy because that is also super hot.
Right.
Or
Agreed.
maybe you're a dude that wants to wear Landsknecht because those little
Yeah.
short shorts are like fantastic.
Amazing, right?
Right.
Or you're like a dude that has shoulders that just don't stop and would look so amazing in Tudor. Like, don't get so mired down in the wear of the SCA. That's the beautiful part about the SCA compared to other recreation groups, is that you can do anything
Do
and
all the
from
things.
anywhere.
Yes.
So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to play that way. The only thing that I would say is that try and figure out a name you can answer to right away, because otherwise someone will give one to you and you might not like it. And it just you might not like it because it's hard to answer to, or it could be that you don't like it
Yeah.
because it's just not you. And it's really hard to change after. It's, you know, the worst names are the ones that are the hardest to change.
Right.
So yeah. So, you know, but yeah, like jump in and don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to, one of the things that I think that old timers in the society, and I mean, I feel like I'm not even an old timer, but I guess I probably am at 25 years, right? I think what we're really bad at is because our chosen family is in the SCA
Mhm.
and we've had to travel to visit, that we can seem like we're really insular and not very friendly
Right.
because we're visiting with people we get to see maybe 2-3 times a year.
Yeah.
It's not that there's not space in my heart for more people to be part of my chosen family.
Yeah.
It's just that I want to catch up with the people that are already there.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something on the flip side of that, is not actually direction to a new person, but direction to people that have been in this society for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Look, if you see someone you don't recognize, maybe you need to go out of your comfort zone again, like you did when you were a newcomer, and say, hey, who
Right.
are you?
Hi.
And if it's super embarrassing because it's somebody you've known for 15 years, but they cut their hair,
Just roll with it.
it's super,
Just
like, you
roll
know
with
what?
it.
I am pretty sure that all of us are going to look a little bit different than the last time we saw each other when this whole COVID was over. And so if I have to go, hi, I'm not sure we've met before, and somebody says to me, are you kidding me? Because you're like, you were my apprentice sister before you were a Laurel, I will be super embarrassed.
Yep.
But I will own that and be
Yep.
okay with it. And by the flip
Right.
side of it, if I say to somebody, hey, I don't think I've seen you before, and they're like, no, because this is my first event, I'll be like, oh, thank God. But you know, like, I think that we as people that have been in the society for a long time need to be welcoming to new people, and new
Yes.
people need to feel like they're welcomed to
Yeah.
jump in with both feet and be part of us.
And like
We
they
are
can approach
all-
people.
Yeah, I mean, when
Yes.
like ultimately we are all a little awkward, and you know, I would hate for somebody to feel like they weren't welcome in our
Right.
group because we were too busy not noticing the world around us
Yes.
and just catching up. And so I do have some, like, that's one of my actual big fears about post-COVID is those first few events. Man, like, I feel bad for newcomers that are coming in when we all haven't seen one another in like
For 2
2
years.
years.
2 years. Yeah.
That they're gonna be all like, "Ah," and crying and stupid about
Yes.
it. And the poor newcomers are gonna be like nobody
What's
loves
going on?
what, why are these people touching each other? Did they not just live through the last 2 years? And
Yeah.
and then also, why is no one talking to me? So I think that yeah, like, jump in and introduce yourself and
Yeah.
say, yes, I thought COVID sucked too.
Right?
And,
Yes.
and yeah, and then by the flip side of that is that we need to make sure that we're welcoming to those people
Yeah.
when they do show up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it. Love it. Tell us about the Heart and Griffin. How did you earn that?
So the Hart and Griffin is a Principality Persona Development Award. And I received it from Wernar and Sinha for my persona development research into Kievan Rus,
Nice.
which I'm clearly not wearing right now. But that's not actually even true because this is a Kievan Rus tunic, hence the references.
Yeah. So I mean, a little bit.
Right. So always a little bit there. So yeah, when I started with sort of generic Irish because I bet you can't guess what my background is.
Not a clue.
Irish. And so I was like, oh, sure, we'll do that. And it turned out so I really didn't like the clothes. And
Fair.
I was kind of like wearing really generic stuff. And I decided, no, like I wanted to wear something that was actually culturally appropriate.
Yeah.
That was not going to be super difficult for me to sew because I am a self-taught seamstress.
Nice.
And have never had lessons other than like grade 8 home ec.
Yeah.
Which I only passed because my teacher pitied me because we had to make shorts and I sewed the butt panels together as one leg and the front panels together as another leg. And so I had one tiny leg and one really big leg and could never wear my shorts. So yeah, it was not a happy 1988, I'll tell you what. They were super cool Bermuda shorts that were hot pink with like skateboards on them.
Nice.
Sounds amazing.
And I couldn't wear them because there was a leg that was this big and a leg that was this big. Like it was the weirdest shorts pattern in the universe because the butt panels were like massive and then the leg panels were really like the front part.
Yep.
Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So anyhow, I decided that I wanted something that was going to be within my ability to sew, as well as something that wasn't what everybody was doing, but also was interesting to me. And I've always just been super interested in Russia. And I don't know why, like ever since I was little.
Interesting.
We could go into a long, more time than we have discussion about my imaginary friend when I was a child who was a vampire that was from Russia and he lived under my bed. But we really don't have time for that. Maybe another time we can have that conversation.
Sounds like episode 2. Okay.
But like, and that was when I was like 5.
Yes,
that my imaginary friend was a Russian vampire that lived under my bed.
Yeah.
He was a good vampire, by the way. He never tried to eat me. He was my friend.
Oh, that's so kind.
He protected me from the closet monster. He was very good. Anyhow, once again, I've digressed. I was really into Russia and so I started doing some research and it was before Google. So I probably went on Alta Vista or Yahoo or something to try and find information. And and was like looking at photos from various Yahoo groups,
Right.
and looking at photos from various events. And I saw this. I was like, I wonder what Russian people wore. And went and started looking, and I was like, ooh, red and white. It's very basic. I think I can probably do this. And then I completely butchered my first outfit. It was horrifying. It was such a hot mess. But I wore it, even though it was awful. I wore it for like 6 months until I could afford more fabric. But I just
clearly
was
you
like,
improved.
yes. And I was really taken with the beauty of it, the simplicity of the lines. It was all
Yep.
geometric patterning. There were no weird gussets that needed to be, or like gores that went up into the middle of the front of anything that were
Right.
go in. All of the gores were in the side, then it made sense to me mathematically, and the way that things were patterned like actually appealed to the math I knew how to do.
Nice.
And I really, really enjoyed it. And I was like, yeah, I like this. And it was actually a toss up between Rus and Viking, because there weren't actually very many Vikings in Cold Keep. And so I
Right.
felt like it might not be the worst thing in the universe.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But I ultimately, I wound up going with Rus because I found a name I liked, and I liked the
Nice.
clothing, and I liked everything about it. I
Yeah.
was in a place in my life where body consciously was very much, I wanted to hide.
Okay.
I wasn't happy with where I was physically. Significantly more unhappy than I currently am. And I just wanted my body to be hidden. And I loved the appeal of the very stately lines of Rus that were very like, hey, look, it's a potato sack with sleeves.
Right.
But you
Fine.
looked very good in, by the way. I'm gonna just go see that right now. Clearly you would look good in a potato sack because you looked amazing in your Rus.
Well, a red potato sack for sure. Back to the little orphan Annie principle, right? But I also really liked that the hems on Rus tunics were a bit shorter.
Right.
I trip a lot. I'm a super huge klutz. I broke my tailbone at an event once. And I just was like, anything that I can do that's not going to be me tripping over a hem
Yeah.
is going to be great. And so Rus tunics were not intended to be long and flowing,
Right.
because just like in northern British Columbia, there is snow for 6 to 8 months of the year. And so there's mud for the other 6 to 4 months of the year. And you don't want that drooping around. And the other thing I really, really loved was that the sleeves were super long, because if you got cold,
Right.
doing this
Yeah.
made sense.
All in.
Yeah. Nice.
So everything about it made sense. And the idea of like, you could get up to 7 layers in Rus clothing and it was still appropriate.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like there was going to be no more freezing to death at events. No, I was having none of that.
Warm forever.
I still do freeze to death at events. It's just a thing. But yeah, like I loved it. It was comfortable.
Yeah.
And it did, when I was really, really unhappy and uncomfortable with my body, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It hid me.
Yeah.
So, but there was also like super fun, quirky things about Rus stuff that is just super fun and quirky, because the early Kievan Rus, which is what my persona was,
Right.
is, I guess, still is, 11th century. It's just after the adoption of Christianity. So you still have a lot of the like quirky pagan stuff that is left over. And that's where the red armpits come in, and there's red hems on your sleeves and on your bottom hems. And there's all these elements of the like protective spells and witchcraft is involved with your clothing, which was also super fun.
Yeah.
Quirky, and I loved it. Like you never left your head uncovered because you didn't want bad spirits to get tangled in your hair. So you always had your veil on. And it was so extreme that you also always had that cap as well.
Yeah.
And the red armpits, even though like I can 100% guarantee that red armpit is to stop pit stains from showing, the red armpit was actually protective. And the red embroidery at the cuffs and at the hems and around the neck hole were all protective, and it was to keep bad spirits from coming between you and your clothes and making you sick and unhealthy. And
Yeah.
there was a panel skirt that you wore if you were of a marriageable age and were wed, because it would protect your loins from bad spirits getting into your reproductive organs.
Huh.
And there was so much fun, like quirky stuff that I just like, I loved it. It was purpose-driven clothing for the climate, but also purpose-driven clothing for the belief system of the people, which I thought was really neat.
That's really cool. Awesome. So tell us about Fields of Gold. Do you have any stories you'd like to share?
Most of them are not appropriate, but sure. So Fields of Gold is west of Cold Keep in Tirbanog. It's actually in Telqua, which is just outside of Smithers, BC. And it is now the Fields of Gold Educational Center. But it wasn't always, but it's a chunk of land that is owned by an SCA person. And over the years, people have built buildings on it, and they're all built to code, which is super cool. And I feel like I just have to throw that out there, because these are buildings that do not have electricity or plumbing or anything like that in them, but they are still built to code so that if, you know, if there was an earthquake, they would be sound, which is cool. It is a beautiful, small, intimate site. It's super nice. It reminds me a lot of how the Merchants Row has developed at Quadwar. Although that is significantly more buildings than there are at Fields of Gold site. It's a really small, beautiful little place. And because it's like off the beaten track, it's 4 hours outside of Cold Keep, on the far extreme road, the ends of the earth where the kingdom is concerned. It's not an event that gets 400 people at it. It's a really tiny, small, intimate, wonderful event. People in the North have always been notorious, inside and outside of the SCA, as being like the kindest people in the universe. And Fields of Gold is one of those places where you just, you know, you're with the best people in the world. There's an inn, and if you stay at the inn, you get coffee and a muffin every morning as your wake up call.
Fresh baked muffins.
The muffins are really good. And there's even gluten-free options. And it's super cool. And there's a variety of different buildings. So the inn is done in a Tudor style, but there's also like a bog house. And there is like, anyways, I haven't been out. I honestly haven't been out to Fields of Gold since before my son was born. Just because it's difficult to travel with 2 kids.
Fair enough.
And but it is one of those events that I'm almost like, I'm ashamed that we haven't been since he was born, because it's a really family friendly event as well. It's one of the events that I used to take Sophia to all the time, and she could like literally run wild. And I hate people that just randomly let their kids run wild, but like she could, and everybody would just parent her. And she's very quietly gesturing to me madly to say, and they have ducks. You know, like the Bardic Circle at Fields of Gold is like the most welcoming Bardic Circle in the world, and the funniest one as well.
Also
and
true.
is not always SCA music. And sometimes there's like whatever people just happen to know how to sing, which is cool. There's like, it's just it's so hard to talk about. Like, it's just such a great event. It's such a great event. And I would honestly encourage anybody to make that trip from like anywhere, to make that trip, because like you'd let them know, oh, I'm planning on coming. And, you know, if you're not coming from super far away, or if you're coming even from super far away, they'd probably be like, oh, well, you know, we can bounce somebody out of the hotel for you.
Yep.
Like seriously. At one point, Christian and Elaine had one crown, not the reign they're currently sitting, but the one prior to that,
Okay.
Yeah.
and decided that they were going to come up as crown prince and crown princess. And so they said, you know, can you arrange, are you going to be there? And I was like, nah, I don't have any vacation time left. I can't make it this year.
Yeah.
They were like, well, can you get in touch? Can you liaise with the
Right.
event steward and all this and get us organized? And so I did all that. It was not a problem. I was like talking to people that I'm really good friends with, whatever. Yeah, I'll get in touch.
Yeah.
And so plans were made and all this was happening and everything was good. And then they got there and they were like getting ready to like, I had people there to help unload their tent, to set their tent up.
Yes.
And the proprietors of the inn, Wilfred and Rhiannon, were like, no, you get the suite in the inn tonight, which for whatever reason had not been communicated to me. So they hadn't even needed to bring their tent with them.
Oh my gosh.
Which was super cool, because then they didn't have to unpack anything. Like
Right?
they literally just had to unpack the thrones and that was it. And that was it. That's all they had to do, was unpack their thrones, pack their thrones back up, and then head back to Prince George for overnight at the end of the day, and then
Right.
head back to Vancouver the next morning, because it is a 2-day trip, right?
Yep.
But yeah, it was like, it's that kind of thing. Like you say, oh, I'm coming out. Do you have space in the inn? Oh, well, no. But then like a couple days later, you get a message. Well, like we actually do have space in the inn
Yeah.
for you.
We'll make space.
You know, we have space in this place for you. We found this, that, or the other, because, you know, like, well, I'm bringing the kids and I don't really want to camp. Oh yeah, we can find you a spot. Like, it's
Nice.
it's an event where you get taken care of no matter what. Yeah.
We've alluded to this, and we've actually met one of them already this evening. Do you currently have any students, apprentices, or proteges?
I do not currently have any proteges, although Astrid and I have talked on multiple occasions about her being an apprentice.
Nice.
But we you know, with COVID, there's no point in solidifying anything, right?
Right. Yep.
I have 5. I have 5 apprentices. I mean, I guess technically I have 4 apprentices. I just lost Oli. Oli Einarson was my very first apprentice. And of course, we all know the tragedy that happened with his family. And anyways, I will cry if we talk about this. So we're not going to. Anyhow, Oli was my first apprentice. And not long after that, I took Ilsbetten and Leif as students.
Right.
They all kind of graduated up to apprentice at the same time.
Right.
And then as I'm sure everybody remembers from Astrid's interview, she kidnapped me and took me on a 14-hour trip, and then at the end of it, when I was arrived, demanded I take her.
Yes.
We got to know each other really well on that road trip, and when she asked, it just was a no-brainer to say yes.
Yeah.
And I had been approached recently by Avacal, who also lives in the same very, very tiny town outside of Prince George that Ilsbetten lives in, to become a student. And I took her roughly the same time that I took Astrid. So all of my apprentices, students, they are all kind of different life stages.
Right.
I don't have any intention of putting any major pressure on them to do anything at this point until they're ready to make those steps. Like 2 of them have small children.
Right.
You know, one of them is sort of still finding his way through the world, and Astrid is I mean, Astrid is involved with everything. So
Yes.
you know, sort of my job with them is different for each of them, and it's kind of, it's really, for me, taking a student or apprentice or eventually a protege is all going to be not about you know, rushing people through to to become something, but because that's definitely a piece of it. Like, I don't mean not the rushing part, but supporting someone in achieving their goals. But it's also building a family. And I was really fortunate to have a Laurel whose focus was the family that we built. And I was very fortunate to very briefly have a Pelican who was also very family focused in her approach. And so ultimately, I feel like that tempers everything about how I feel about this as well. And if you're not somebody, it's a two-way street. I'm going to give as much as I can. I hope that the student will give back, not just to me, but to the society, not just to the society, but to their craft. But I also, at the end of the day, want to be able to sit in the car with them for 14 hours without wanting to kill them. So, because that's the foundation of any
Right.
relationship, needs to be it needs to be those commonalities that can keep
Yes.
you focused
Yeah.
and keep you awake for a 14-hour drive through the middle of the night, and you know, not falling asleep and driving off into a ditch.
Yes. Turns out those
Really
are important
recommended.
qualities to have.
Yeah. So, you know, ultimately that's going to be the first consideration that I'm going to make with anybody is, do we get along?
Right.
Is this somebody that I can imagine spending time in a car with? And if I can't, either because they're really that noxious or
Right.
because I just don't know them well enough, then there's other things we can talk about first. Like, let's test drive this first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. And there'll be no negative impact for it not working for you
Yeah.
and not working for me. It's just that we needed to find a better fit for you, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been really lucky because, you know, my kids
Right.
are all amazing people that I've been happy to welcome into my family, and understanding that I have children that I want my SCA family to rub along well with my real world family
Yep.
as well, right? So that's a big piece of it as well, because if, you know, if I have a student that can't be nice to my kids,
Right. That's a problem. Yeah.
that's not going to work out in the long run, right?
Yeah.
So
Speaking of children, how do you torment your children in the SCA?
I primarily choose Facebook as my method of torture for my kids.
Excellent. I heartily approve.
Yeah, Facebook is better, I think, than real torture in the SCA.
That's fair.
But I also absolutely love when people come running up to Sophia and are like, "Oh my God, I've literally watched you grow up in the SCA," and she has no clue who they are. And they were like, "Oh, the last time I saw you, you were 2 months old and you were your mom's ANS project." And she's like, and
those cute little striped stockings you used to wear.
yeah, I'd be like, "Oh, there's the cutest picture in the world of you on Facebook, and you're wearing nothing but tights and a t-shirt and your bum is sticking out. It's so cute." And she, like, 5'10" of her starts to melt under the ground because she wants to get away from how horrifying it is. So I take great delight in that. There is literally no way to embarrass my son.
Oh dear.
I could try. All he's going to do is turn it around on me and horrify me with something he's going to do.
That sounds heartbreaking.
So challenge accepted, and I'm sorry in advance.
Yeah, like when he's 14, oh, he's gonna get it. But because I'll be telling stories about how he constantly pukes and
Right.
ruins everything. And then he'll be embarrassed. Unless he's figured out how to puke on command at that point, and I'll be embarrassed because he'll be like, "Yeah, watch this." But it's so much easier to horrify Sophia just because she's at the right age to be horrified.
That's fair.
Totally. Yeah.
And the thought that your parent might have a life is really
Right.
horrifying at
Right.
that age.
Horrifying.
And so I could be like, if she's not horrifying fast enough, I could just be like, look at him. Gross mother. Yuck. So she's at the right age. Like it's easy to mortify her. But my favorite is when everybody else does it to her and is all like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in forever. Oh my God, do you remember me? And she's like, yes. And I get the panicked look and I'm trying to mouth a name behind the person. So like,
right.
trying to save her from the distinct horror of not knowing who people are.
Yes, of course.
Totally. But the flip side of that is that she calls so many people auntie and uncle that she can turn around and horrify them right back.
That's fair.
Because she can call them auntie or uncle and then they're like, oh, well, this is awkward.
Right.
Because
super awkward suddenly.
She's a giantess, right? She's 5'10". She's a kid, but she's taller than me. And so she's all like, oh my goodness, it's Uncle so-and-so. And they're like, oh, that's awkward. Wow. Okay. Well, now I feel old. And I'm like, yes. So be mindful when you try to horrify the child that she will
two-way street.
Well, I was going to say that she has learned from the best, unfortunately.
The apple did not fall far from this tree. It really didn't. Like she's like a creepy little clone. And every new thing that she gets into is like, oh yeah, I was super into that in 1989. And she's like, literally, did you clone me? It's so funny. Oh, I think she's coming over to interrupt right now. She's totally coming over to interrupt because she has a funny story to tell about. So she's coming over to hold up a sweater.
Hello.
Hi.
Clone.
This is a sweater, a lovely lavender cable knit sweater that we got at Walmart. And I was like, Mom, I really like the sweater. Could we get it? And Mom was like, I think I had that exact sweater
in 1987
when I was your age. And then what makes it worse is not even a week before I got this really nice skirt, really nice black jean skirt, and it's like a little bit acid washy. And Mom was like, I think I wore those two bits of clothing together.
Yep.
The day I was wearing them
together. And the black jean skirt is like, I honestly, don't knock that over.
I'm not going to.
The black jean skirt, it was so much like the one that I had in grade 8 that I was like, checking it for the state that it would have had if it had been mine. And I was like, oh no, it's missing the hot pink lacing in the sleeve. So it couldn't possibly be mine. And it didn't have a zipper around the hem because mine had the zipper around the hem because it had the extension on it.
So that you can make it longer and appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I was like, but man, it was identical.
Very close. Very close. Speaking of potentially making your child awkward, I have another question for you. Does on tears smolder?
Whew, does it ever? You might want to exit now because you're gonna.
I was just gonna say more about me being a literal clone of you.
Sidetrack. Nope, we're not talking about the hotness.
No.
Oh no. We have to talk about the hotness. I saw images off screen.
Okay.
Can't see now.
So these.
Admittedly dirty,
very filthy, disgusting, filthy glasses. Pretty much the frames I had in grade 9.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
all of this independently wanted without seeing a photo of Mom. Just a little clone.
Perfect.
So, okay. So you may want to ask that question.
Ask your question again.
Oh yes. Yeah. So does on tears smolder?
Whew. Yeah. Yes, on tears smolders. Oh, it is on tear smolder.
Do you have any proof? Because I'd like some proof.
Oh, I have proof. So I'm sure that some people saw my rampant advertising in December and January and November
Yes.
about onto your smolder calendar.
Mm.
So it all started with His Majesty Christian and Sir Lachlan trying to outsmolder one another
Oh dear.
on Facebook.
Of
And
course.
A worthy pursuit.
yeah, absolutely. And then it turned into like a kingdom-wide thing where it became a kingdom-wide smolder. Anyone could smolder. Post your smolder photo up on the Kingdom Facebook.
Right.
And then Her Excellency Gemma and I, like, it was like we had the same idea at the same time, because I got pinged one morning when I was getting ready for work. And she was like, do you want to help me with some shenanigans? And I was like, shenanigans? Well, if my middle name is not Shenanigans, I don't know what it is.
Speak in my language.
I was like, could this possibly be a smolder calendar? And she was like, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I am 100% in, 100%. And so we started actively asking for smolder photos. We set up a special email address. I spent hours going, can you please send a higher resolution photo of your abs? Because that's going to be blurry if we put it as May. So we wound up getting, like 60, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, people that sent, like, not 60 individuals, but like 60 photos.
Yeah.
Some of them were so good, and some of them were horrifying. There was one so brave, such a brave person, literally Starkers.
Yep.
With his
buckler.
With his, okay, so buckler across the junk in one photo, basket hilt across the junk in another, like Starkers. I was like, oh, maybe we can't put that one into the calendar. And there was a lot of really, really low res, terrible, like bad res photos, but I mean, like, there's nothing you can do about that except for asking for a higher resolution.
Yes.
But yeah, there was definitely some bravery and just the good humor of the people that participated was so wonderful. We wanted it to be a fundraiser for men's health. And because it had all started with the horrible Movember mustache that His Majesty had cultivated. And it was just, it just made sense.
Yes.
So what we chose was we were gonna do it as cheap as we could, sell as many copies as we could, and the profits would go to the Movember Foundation in Canada and the United States, split evenly between the two.
Fantastic.
So that's what we did. And it was actually like a really amazing experience. I met new people. It's weird.
Very interesting way to meet some new people.
Like, so I was looking at the photo of your abs and now we're Facebook friends. Kind of awkward. And particularly a little bit awkward in the whole sense of like, yeah, we're totally like, this is all female gaze, right? But how do you balance the need for eye candy and your need to be a feminist? Like, there's a
it's a tightrope.
It is, and just sometimes I topple over the edge and I'm just totally objectifying the boys. But anyways, they did smolder. Ontier has some absolutely beautiful men, and we were so lucky that they're beautiful on the inside and the out.
Yes.
And are willing to participate and support this endeavor. So fantastic. So yes, I do have my smolder calendar.
Lovely.
Yes. And even though I'm going to show you the centerfold, this is my favorite photo of His Majesty.
It's a pretty awesome photo.
It's a pretty epic picture.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But there is a centerfold that will come out without wrecking the calendar, which I think is only takes me back to my teen magazine days.
Right? When you would
and-
unfold the poster from the middle.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
carefully with the
It had to go on my wall.
Yeah.
And
wow.
That's majestic.
so good cause,
Yep.
Yeah.
beautiful art
Yes.
for my wall,
Yes.
right? Always need a 4th calendar in my house. Why not?
Right.
Actually, I think this is the 5th calendar in my house because I have Avacal's calendar and I have a calendar that Sir Rifkin sent me. So this is my 3rd SCA calendar of the year. And
You
then
can never have too many SA calendars.
Oh, you really can't.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, so and the one run was really successful. And
Awesome.
there's another former Avacalian.
Yes. Yes.
And there's a person on each, like, who's the main month.
Yeah.
Right.
Then the sidebar has 3 people as well. So there's somebody that Avacal knows and loves very well. I love this picture of Helen. It is so good.
It's
And
a
then
nice
there's
photo.
people down the sidebar. And then, believe it or not, my favorite month is January of next year because it is the future smolder.
Aw.
And it's so cute. And
Aw.
there's my kid smoldering.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was so fun to work on. It was so fun to participate in. It was so fun to talk to Lachlan about what to do with his photos, because his photos are smashing. They were so
Spectacular.
good.
Yeah.
He also did purposeful, like on purpose photos for
Right.
this calendar. And they're just, I gotta find it because they're so good. I think is he oh, maybe he's October. Nope. November. There we go. Mr. November. He was like, I don't know what to do for my photos. And I was like, Google Dudoir,
Yep.
see what you come up with, because
Yes.
tongue in cheek
Yeah.
is so much better than like really serious, like
Yeah.
trashy
Yes.
novel cover, right?
Agreed.
We want people to enjoy participating in this. And if you're feeling awkward, Dudoir is where to go, because then you're going to feel funny, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just loved it.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
Like chainsawing something in a manly, sexy way.
Super
it's
manly way. Yep.
so good. Just so good. And yeah, how much fun was that?
Yeah.
Right.
It was just fun.
That's awesome.
And for a good cause,
Even better.
because
Honestly, even
the
better.
Movember Foundation works towards funding for men's health issues, not just like physiological health issues.
Right.
So
Mhm.
they do a lot of funding for prostate and testicular
Yes.
cancer, but
Mhm.
they also do a lot of funding and support for men's mental health initiatives,
Yeah.
which is really, really cool, because I think that, like there's a lot of that idea that men don't get sad and men don't have feelings and men emotionally are kind of constipated. And I can certainly empathize as somebody who is also emotionally constipated and feels the need to be tough and put on a brave face all the time. But that level of expectation is killing the men that we know. And I think that it's super cool that they sort of expanded their mission to include men's mental health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree.
That brings us to the end of the show. But first, do you have any favorite moments or memories you'd like to share with us?
Oh my goodness. There's a lot of years.
Just a couple. It's fine.
Thank you. I think, without it sounding too hokey, I loved the opportunity to serve as Princess of Avacal. It was 100% unexpected.
Mhm.
As anyone that knows the backstory is very well aware, I quite happily agreed to be somebody's inspiration the night before the tournament, and he won the tournament. And I met him the night that I agreed to be his inspiration. So that was a bit of a surprise. It was really an amazing experience. I didn't have a very complete understanding of the expectations and responsibilities of royalty sort of leading into the role. I never even been, well, that's not true. I had been on a retinue. I was going to say I'd never been on a retinue, but I had been on a retinue. I had an idea, but I didn't, right?
Yeah.
And there is nothing quite so overwhelming as the herd of people that come forward to swear fealty. That broke my brain, in a good way.
Yes.
It was amazing. The friends that I made while I reigned are people that I still hold with absolute highest regard. The people that stepped forward to help with advising because I was inexperienced.
Right.
They always had the best interests of the principality at heart, but were able to advise in a way that wasn't condescending or, like, you really weren't prepared for this, were you?
Yeah.
They were always willing to lend a hand up. And that was incredible and amazing. And the coolest thing in the universe is the look that someone gives you when you give them an award that they so richly deserve. Such a cool feeling to see them called up into court with that look of shock on their face.
Yes.
And then be able to say, like, so just so that everybody knows what's going on here.
Yeah.
This is a person who's done this, that, and the other. And I learned that from a letter that was sent to me. And I'm sad that I didn't know that beforehand. Like, it was such a neat experience. I really loved it. It was so much fun. It was a lot of work. It was incredibly stressful at times. But ultimately, it was such a good experience, and probably, like, right up there in my top 5 SCA moments, probably the number 1 moment was the whole reign. It was such a gift. It was such a neat thing to do. And was not something I ever expected to do, and not something I ever expect to have the opportunity to do again. So, I wish that I could have done it again. And I probably have not learned my lesson. If somebody said to me, "Oh, can I fight for you tomorrow?" I'd probably be like, "Yeah, sure." You know what happens when you ask that, though, right? Like, you're prepared, aren't you? So, I would, it was terrifying initially, but it turned out to be such an awesome experience. And it really wasn't something that I ever anticipated experiencing. So it was cool that way too. And so that's definitely gotta be my favorite. I think my elevations, both to Laurel and to Pelican, were pretty overwhelming and amazing.
Yeah.
Just and funny. It's so funny because the weather was so terrible when I got elevated to Laurel. And I had learned enough at that point, though, that I did not go into court wearing a pair of Crocs. I kicked them off at least.
Excellent
I was in flip-flops, and I went into court barefoot instead of being in flip-flops. When I became Denise, I was wearing hot pink Crocs. So that was classy. And only one person said anything, and it was just, I'm gonna make you some shoes. That was
That's
really
so
embarrassing.
thoughtful and so
Yeah.
kind.
So
Yeah.
nice.
I got duped into going to the event where I wound up becoming a pelican.
Yeah.
Because like I got a phone call, and I was like, I actually got a message saying, hey, can you come to this event? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go play in Avacal. I get to be, poorly behaved Viscountess that doesn't live in Avacal anymore if I go to Avacal. And I think it was the same weekend as, like, it was either a crown or a coronation. Anyways,
Yeah, something like that.
already purchased my plane tickets and everything. I was going to Avacal, and I got this text message, oh, can you come to this event? I'm like, no, going to have fun in Avacal. Sorry, man, gonna go behave badly. And then I got a phone call the next day, and it was like, look, there's something really important happening for the fam, and I really need you there. And I was like, and I was like, seriously, like, I will have to change my flight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's that important that you
Yeah.
come to this event.
Huh.
I was like, ugh, fine, but I better have fun. I better have fun. And also, how do I behave badly in my own kingdom? Come on, man.
Right.
So anyways, I changed my flight and I went down, and I had a wonderful weekend visiting with my Lionsgate folks, and then went to the event, and we're sitting through court, and it was like the longest court ever. And
Because it's on deer cough.
yeah, and there was baronial court and principality court and then kingdom court, and I was like, oh my God, when is this gonna end? I'm so tired, I want to go to bed. And His Majesty said, with this award that like never gets given out, it's only been given out a few times, and we decided that it's time to sort of bring it out of obscurity, and we're going to start giving it out, and blah 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 blah. And this person is like amazing, and they always let people stay at their house. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a cool person. I want to go visit them because I won't have to camp. And conveniently would not have to camp if I went to an event in that person's neck of the woods.
Yes.
And opens their doors and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wait a minute, there's some very specific examples being given right now. And I feel like there's no way that man is calling me up to give me some weird, obscure award that I've never heard of. And yeah, he called me up to give me this weird, obscure award that no one had ever heard of. And I was like, what is this? I was like, this is so weird. I swear, if I changed my plane ticket for some obscure award that no one has ever heard of, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this. And then, and they just elevated somebody to Pelican, and they were like, and could the order of the Pelican please come up? And I was like, oh, well, let me leave. They're like, no, stay. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But the really cool part about it wasn't just that. It was that His Majesty had because I guess it was a quick turnaround. They did not have a scribe on hand right away to get my Pelican scroll done really quickly. Her Majesty was backlogged with the other Pelican scroll for the person being elevated, who was on vigil. Yeah. And so he did my Pelican scroll. And so my Pelican scroll has Thor on it, and it has a little Captain American shield florets all over it. And Thor is wearing the Ontir crown. And yeah, and so that was super special. And then he has this his belt that he wears when he's fighting has this like belt buckle on it that's got a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
So he'd said to me, and I should have clued in that something was coming up, right? Because my Pelican Gemma had said to me, so I just want to have this conversation with all the kids.
Yeah.
If you're ever asked, like if you're ever elevated, I just want to make it clear that, you know,
Yeah.
this is what happened when I was elevated. I swore on the Queen. I swore my oath on the Queen.
Right.
I would really like that to be something that my kids do when they get elevated. I should have clued in that moment that she felt it was so important to have that conversation with me before the event.
Right.
But anyway, so he says he's got his fighting belt on with the like Thunderbolt belt buckle, and he's like, so what would you like to swear your oath on? I'm wearing lightning bolt.
The good thing you're friends.
Yeah, totally right. Like, there's no way that would have happened if we hadn't been friends. But I was like, as much as I would 100% love to swear fealty on that belt buckle, I have actually already promised my husband that I would swear on the Queen. So I'm really sorry. Maybe later, big boy. But yeah, I was just like, so awkward. Yeah, it was super funny. It was so funny. And so yeah, anyways, so I swore my oath on the Queen, who is also a dear friend of mine. And so it made it that much more meaningful.
Nice.
But it was just, part of it was really weird. Like, I've never had a vigil. So I still don't know what to ask people when I go visit them on their vigils, because I didn't get one. So and part of that was like, I didn't get one for my elevation to Order of the Laurel because my anxiety was just like way off the mark. And I think the intention had been to put me on vigil, and then I was a hot mess. And so maybe we shouldn't do that because she might run away. And then this one was just like, it's hard enough getting this woman to come to an event right now. Just do it.
Well, and the Kingdom events are so far away. Like,
yeah. And with like working full time and my husband's job being the way it is, and the kids, and you know, my parents had been huge supporters of my SCA activity. But when my mom passed away, I didn't want to overburden my dad with additional childcare needs when he was still caring for the kids when I was working. So that really changed a lot of my focus with the SCA as well. Is just that, you know, like, I can't leave them at home. But I also can't be all like, hey, Dad, I'm skipping town again. Whereas, you know, it was the two of them. They were like, yes, we get the grandkids for the weekend.
Right.
But when it's just Dad, I feel like that's letting the kids gang up on him. So maybe is not the fairest thing to do to my dad. So yeah.
Awesome. Any final comments for the known world, for Avacal, for not Avacal?
I really feel like Griffin Eye News is missing a hard news section, where there is a foreign correspondent who goes out and does some investigative reporting about the happenings in the world. I think that there is so much that could be investigated.
In another kingdom, especially
in another kingdom,
correspondent type way. You know, we could have some news from, you know, Plague Central and find out how things are going during one of the Great Black Plague revivals. You could have a foreign correspondent that was maybe embedded with troops in the English military at Agincourt or something.
That's fair.
Really, it's a whole lot of like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure type time travel stuff that could be, and I just feel like that is hugely and profoundly missing from the Griffin Eye News umbrella of services that are being offered.
Well, let me put on my producer hat.
Well, I was gonna say we definitely
we'll talk.
We definitely don't have one of those yet.
We don't.
But,
we don't.
Who would you recommend, Natalia?
Do you have?
Get to do.
I don't know.
Such an important job.
It's very. You'd have to have somebody who you know, knew some stuff about some
Yep.
stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
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 who maybe had some training in journalism.
That'd be
Yep.
helpful.
Yep.
That might be helpful. Had maybe taken broadcast at BCIT in
Yep.
1997 specifically.
Yeah.
Might be
Yep.
helpful.
I hear that was your class. Yeah.
Somebody,
Yeah, that
somebody
specific
that has
year.
an
Yeah.
understanding of history and literature with
Right.
perhaps
Right.
a bachelor's in
Mhm.
literature with
Mhm.
an undeclared minor in history. That seems
Ah.
like that would be a good plan.
And
Yeah.
sounds like a good
And
fit. Yeah.
particularly if they're going to be investigating various, illnesses and wars
Right.
through
Yep.
the
Right.
ages.
It is a pandemic.
Somebody that has some medical knowledge probably
That would be helpful, I feel like.
Yeah, maybe a medical background that could, describe the state of medical affairs
Mhm.
during these outbreaks and
Somebody clearly with a face for television too, I think, because
Mhm. Yep.
yeah,
we're
well,
doing it.
and or like a voice for radio, that is also acceptable. But someone who is foreign, because otherwise it's not a foreign correspondent. It's
Right.
or at least living in foreign lands, whether or not they are.
yeah. I mean, they could be an expat. That would also work.
Right.
Yep.
Probably
Yep.
It's a
beneficial.
great idea, Natal'ia.
Understand the
Really,
lingo about medieval bunny hugs,
right?
Yep.
and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know where we're gonna
I don't
find
know where
somebody
you'd
so
find
well-rounded.
Pretty
just- yeah.
specific requirements. We may have to put out a call
We'll have to
to,
investigate.
to see. Yeah.
There may be
Yeah.
a need for auditions.
That's
In
true.
which case you do probably want to hire somebody into that role who doesn't have a problem with nudity, and is okay running through walls falling during the fall
Right.
of Jerusalem.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I think-
Somebody willing to get their feet wet.
Yes, yeah, feet wet, and
And possibly the rest of them.
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel that may be something that you want to look into.
That's
Okay, well,
important.
Avacal and No Rolled, if you come up with this very specific person, please let us know.
Very,
We are
very
now on
well-rounded.
We are now on
skills.
the search.
For the best lighting options, the person should probably have red hair.
Mm,
Right.
Just
Very distinctive.
because it lights really well,
right.
whether
Right.
it's
Yes.
by candlelight or during broad daylight.
Yep.
I think that probably red hair is a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, good to know. Good for thought.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Natal'ia, for joining us. And for the new search we're going to have to put on for this very
Yes.
specific person that we hope exists somewhere.
I can't imagine where you'll find someone quite so specific, but
I
They
don't know.
will be very
I
special.
believe in your
Yes.
ability to find that individual.
Yes,
We
I
will
hope
do
so.
Our
I hope
best.
so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as always, Gwen, thank you for joining in. And this has been Maeve with Griffin Eye News.
Bye.